We'll put someplace. All right. Welcome to Thursday Evening Thrive on November the 16th, I think we're at.
Yeah.
So here we go. I thought I would start with prayer, since that's what we tend to do. So I stop and take a breath. And I recognize that there is only God. There is one power that is everywhere present, that is in and through and as everything that exists. And that power that is God is through each and every one of us, through all of the things that we can see and touch and feel and those that we cannot, and through all of the memories, all of the thoughts, all of the ideas, all of the creative expansion areas. It's all God. And as God is flowing through each and every one of us, I know that this time, in this place, this session is absolutely divinely blessed, and that there is something in this particular talk for each person who hears it. And so I give thanks for this time that we share together, knowing it is perfect in every way. And I release this prayer into the law that says yes, knowing it is done here and now. And we affirm it together by saying, and
So it is.
So when the theme came out for November, I kind of laughed. The theme of the mundane, the sacred, the profane, oh my, seemed odd. The mundane is everything. We do all of the things we do all day long. Of course, that's every single bit when we're not feeling in a sacred mood or a profane mood either, but all of those details that we do, that's mundane. And we do them. And it's all God. And of course, the sacred, what we consider sacred, are those rituals and places and things that we go and do and share and be in community or alone that feel like we're closer to God. And that's God too. In fact, probably if you've been listening, and I have not necessarily, to the talks from the first week and the second week, which is the mundane and the sacred, they probably pointed out that the mundane is sacred as well as the sacred is sacred. And so now we get to the profane. And I kind of went, profane. Well, that's those things that are out of contrary to what we expect. It's out of what seems to me to be the appropriateness of something according to society at the moment. So profane could be language, it could be apparel, it could be all kinds of things. And if God is all there is, then that is God too. And that's kind of the point, I think, of this particular talk. I love being able to argue with the material that CSL provides, just because I think that's fun. My mother used to say I should be a lawyer because I could argue both sides of everything. Oh well. In the talk today, which was written by Casey Taylor, who's in Oklahoma City, so I know her and I know what she's aiming at. And she spoke last week at church on the sacred. She talks about what it means to be profane. And she lists off some different kinds of things: curse words, expressing new sexuality, believing in unconventional ideas about God. Profane is a word that refers to something that's associated with the secular, not religious. It's considered an antonym of sacred. And as we expand our thinking, we understand that God is present everywhere in everything. Does that mean that we need to change our definition of what is profane or what is sacred?
Can you say that last statement again?
Maybe.
Sorry. Maybe.
I don't know that I can say it exactly the way I said it before.
Sorry. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay. The concept of what's profane, though, shifts from culture to culture. It's not the same. So the thumbs up sign, that's a positive sign, like we've got you in the United States or in America, is a equivalent in the Japanese or in Middle Eastern countries. It's an equivalent of giving somebody the finger.
Oh, wow.
So we need to be careful how we use things. That's not a good thing. In Japan, tipping for services is considered insulting. In some cultures, sexuality is taboo, and in others, it's embraced. And like you wouldn't do anything in some cultures that was any way overt. There's no public displays of affection at all. And yet in other cultures, that's perfectly fine. So how do we figure out what the heck is profane, and how do we make it so that it's okay to be who we are in our CSL centers or in our communities or in our hearts, for that? Her second point goes on to say something along the lines of, is marijuana a harmful drug or a plant that serves as a healthy alternative to some prescription medicines? Is a curse word a defiance of God or a defiant form of self-expression? We see the profane as words or practices that defy the norm. I'm going to go with what she said for a few minutes, and then I'm going to really digress. Humans' treatment of each other could be considered profane in many cases. Governments that value the lives of the rich while their country's citizens are hungry and living in the street, that's profane, or could be considered profane. The prevalence of human trafficking, mass incarceration, over-policing of impoverished people could be considered profane. More profane in many cases than the use of a cuss word. Or maybe religious organizations that focus on tradition and ritual instead of an invitation to deepen one's relationship with spirit could be considered profane. To some people, God, the word God, is profane. How do we shift our focus to see the spiritual truth of everything, including what is perceived as profane? To me, and you may be differing from me, the idea of something being profane is a judgment. And we just have to let go of the judgment. I mean, we're the ones that judge it as sacred. We're the ones that judge it as mundane. We're the ones that judge it as boring. We're the ones that judge it as profane. Sometimes we need to let go of the judgment. Now, I'm getting used to the fact that sometimes guys can have really great long hair. Have you noticed that? When I was growing up, guys only had short hair. And it was way out of the norm for guys to have long hair. But when guys have really great long hair that I never had growing up, I have a really hard time not being in judgment about that. It's like, whew, how come they got that and I didn't? I'm getting used to the idea that we could wear jeans to church, because when I grew up, women wore dresses to church and heels if you could, and a hat and something to cover your hair. It didn't have to cover it all, but something on your head for your humility.
Humility.
Yeah, humility. Right. Yes.
Okay.
That was the message I got growing up. I don't know whether it's true or not, but that's what I got growing up. But I'm still having a really hard time with the idea that it's okay for a man to wear a baseball cap indoors.
Hmm.
And when
Right.
I grew up, men did not wear hats indoors.
Right.
Women could, but men could not. And that's a holdover that I recognize that I have. It's like, and it doesn't make any difference to me who the man is or what he's doing or whatever. I mean, there's this flash judgment. Why the heck's he got that hat on inside? Oh well, let it go, Suellen. You don't need it. It's something that you don't need. So Casey's next point is about stretching our thinking to embrace a greater mindset, to expand our thinking along the lines of what is profane, to include people who think and look and act differently than we do. That makes perfectly good sense. That's where her whole talk is going. How do we expand that? But I want to go back to the human treatment of each other. Earlier, I listed humans' treatment of each other could be considered profane. Governments that value the lives of the rich while their citizens are hungry and living in the street. The prevalence of human trafficking, mass incarceration, and over-policing of impoverished people. And then I've added my own: war, terrorism, and so on. Those things are profane, in my opinion, and it is a judgment. How do I let go of that? So I'm gonna go with something totally different. In the book, The Dream, the Journey, Eternity, and God, Channeled Answers to Life's Deepest Questions by Sarah Landon and Mike Dooley, the guides say, and this is long, but I'm going to go slow because it's really interesting in my opinion. First, understand that the world you see around you is a reflection of the world that exists within you. If you are living in the struggle and suffering, if you are believing in limited resources, if you are angry, resentful, and at war with yourself, and if you are in chaos and fear and judgment within, that is the world you will experience around you. The reason for our wisdom is so that you can remember that what you create within you, you create in the world around you. As you create a world within you that is peaceful and joyful and harmonious, loving and kind and abundant and full of beauty, well-being and freedom, you're creating this in the world around you. And so many of you are doing this now. You're bringing yourself into oneness, into unity consciousness, into God consciousness. And in doing so for yourself, you're doing it for humanity. You are helping to elevate the consciousness of humanity into a state of oneness. And you're not doing it so all of you will choose the same things and the same ways of living. You're doing it so that you all operate at a level of consciousness aligned with your truth. And it will never matter who's not choosing that which you choose for yourself. You will simply go deeper into creating the world within you that you want to experience in the world around you. There is an incredible transformation of consciousness happening on the planet at this time. Doesn't seem like it, does it? Individually and collectively, you're stepping into levels of consciousness, vibration, and frequency that are incredibly exciting. You are going to see the greatest innovations and the greatest technological advancements that you've ever seen. You're going to see a complete up-leveling of humankind. Hey, I'm looking forward to it. That is what is possible. However, it is always of your choosing. So it comes down to you living your version of heaven on earth. Realize that you are on this planet moving through the universe as one collective human family. But you are unique within yourself, with endless potentials and possibilities to expand, explore, and choose the experiences that you would like to have. Each of you can tap into the inspiration from infinite intelligence and use it to innovate and to expand technologies and systems of all kinds of things. As you go beyond the illusions of lack and limitation and separation, humanity will too, and there's no end to the expansion that is possible. You have enough resources on this planet to completely satiate your entire human family. In fact, there's an infinite supply of available resources for all of you now. As you shift your focus and attention away from warring, chaos, and division, and stop trying to change people and situations, and stop arguing about who's right and who's wrong, you will be elevating your consciousness into a place of inspiration that allows you to perceive optimal potentials for resource sharing and exchange systems based in understanding of one's own worth and one's own value. Those who are awakening within organizations, corporations, and businesses, such as entrepreneurs, will lead in ways that are aligned to their truth, following the energy and light, being and staying in the flow, and allowing source energy and the inspiration and creativity, sorry, can't get my tongue out that one, that comes with it. The future for all humankind can be as beautiful and glorious as you can imagine it. Your path to that is to create it within yourself while holding the vision for a fully awakened world where all beings live in harmony with one another. All humans and all animals and the entire planet are living as one. And in this, there is peace, joy, love, abundance, harmony, freedom, and well-being for all. In other words, a world that works for everyone. Keep in mind, you can only choose for yourself. You don't get to choose for others. Darn it. As you continue to elevate your own consciousness and vibration, you positively contribute to elevating it for all the planet Earth. And when consciousness reaches a certain vibration frequency, many will spontaneously awaken to their truth. And you will notice a very rapid expansion of consciousness where people begin to move into transformation and then into pure love. So this is like the 100th monkey thing, where after 100 monkeys, one monkey taught another how to do this something, and then that one taught another one, and that one taught another one, and then after they taught about 100 monkeys, it seemed like everybody after that was born knowing how to do whatever it was the monkeys were teaching. Or Reverend Cindy Hollis used to tell us, as I was going through prac class, that she said that she wanted to be such an example of knowing God that everybody that came in contact with her wanted to know who her God was. I'm thinking, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good one too. In lower levels of consciousness, you think there are all these problems that need to be fixed, all these things that need to be changed, and all these systems and structures that need to be rebuilt. And then we come along, these guides come along and say to you, nope, it's all about consciousness. Well, if you investigate this in your own life, you'll begin to understand that all the solutions and answers you seek are already there. They are just in an elevated level of consciousness. The highest guidance, the most expansive awareness, and the grander perspectives of what is possible, all of it is there. The answer to everything, including the answer to creating the future you want for humankind, is consciousness, and it starts with your own. The more you elevate your consciousness, the more you are positively contributing to and elevating the consciousness of humanity. You will reach a place where you will experience a natural gravitation to oneness, unity, and a desire or love, peace, joy, harmony, abundance, freedom, and well-being for all. It's easy to understand how all of this occurs when you understand the different levels of consciousness. When you're perceiving yourself in separation, right and wrong, lack and limitation, and fear, you're in a very dense vibration or frequency. As each of you continue to move into higher levels of consciousness, it just gets easier for you and much easier for all of those who are also finding their way. So it's the 100th monkey thing. So if we can get 100 people to be enlightened, that as that ripples out from who we are, people are going, oh, I want what she's got. I want what she's got. I want what she's got. And then it moves on and on and on. They give a story about finding a path, going on a bike ride, and you're going through the woods on a dirt bike trail. Like I would ever do that. They were going, and you see, all of a sudden you see a path that's not a path per se, but you see a shortcut that goes to the top of the mountain where you're aiming for. So you take that path or that shortcut that appears to you is not a path, but you go that way. And then the next time you go to the top of the mountain, you take that same path again. And then the next time you go, you take it again. And then the third and the fourth and the fifth time as well. And then by that time, there's a real path then beginning to be worn in the woods, the shortcut way. And the next people that come along behind you see the shortcut way, see there's a fake path there, and they take it too. And that's all we have to do. That's all. Like, that's not anything, but we build the bridge to consciousness. We expand who we are, bring our own level of consciousness up. And as we do that, we are way showers for the people who come behind us. So all we have to do for ourselves and humankind is to build a bridge into higher levels of consciousness. And we do this by living at a higher level of consciousness ourselves. We choose higher level thoughts that create higher level emotions that increase our vibration and frequency and expand our potentials and possibilities as we build the bridge. And we are making it so much easier for all of humankind to build theirs. So when we see all of this stuff out in the universe that is profane, if you want to call it that, if you want to be in judgment like that, that stuff that's out there, the trafficking, the terrorists, the war that's going on, the fact that some people in government are not behaving in integrity, certainly not apparently holding their positions as they were elected to do. When we see that, when we hear that, what we want to do in ourselves is raise our consciousness above that level so that we are in the place of love and peace and hope and joy and understanding. So my suggestion is to send balloons of love. I know I've talked about this before, but my suggestion is that as you see a situation like this, mentally hold in your mind's eye a balloon and blow it up with all the love that you can put into it. So you're sitting there puffing on this balloon, and every breath you're puffing into the balloon is love. And the balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now it's in your imagination, so you can make it be as big as you want. So we just keep blowing on it, and in our imagination, because you don't really want to be puffing all this time. But in your imagination, you're blowing on it, it gets huge. It gets dirigible sized. And then because it's in your imagination, you can tie it off with a little tiny knot, just like a regular balloon. Now you've got this huge balloon full of love. And in my mind's eye, I can skate that balloon across the sky to wherever it's needed the most, and particularly a politician or in the middle of the war, or wherever it is that I want to send it. I can skate that balloon over there. And then all it takes is one imaginary pin to let all of that love spill out all over everywhere.
Hmm.
Can it hurt anything? No, it's all in my imagination. And in my imagination, I'm elevating me because I'm sending love. I'm expanding the love that I give out into the world. And some of that goes over, and on some level, somehow, somewhere, that love is showered down on those people. That's my way of up-leveling consciousness to some extent. Prayer is another way to do it. But remembering we can't change other people. We can only change us. So, mundane, profane, sacred, it's all God. I think that in the notes, Casey's notes, she has the comment that CSL Dallas uses the catchphrase TSRW. This shit really works.
Yeah.
They use the term to share how effective the intentional use of science of mind has been in their lives. This shit really works. It does. It's like everything, you get better at it as you go. We didn't walk the first time we stood. We didn't walk easily the first time we stood up and took those wobbly steps. We didn't ride a bike real well the first time we got on it either. And I can tell you, my handwriting was not legible when I first started doing handwriting back in 2nd or 3rd grade, whatever it was. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you're more articulate with a pencil than me. Practice. We have to practice. Practice sending love. Practice with prayer. Practice with spiritual mind treatment. That's what we have to do.
Yep.
Because if we do those things on a regular basis, what we find is our consciousness shifts. Our world begins to shift. And that is what I think we're here to do. I think we're here. I think I'm here to help other people make a difference in their lives. And I think that's done by teaching. I think that's done by example. I think that's done by expanding my consciousness into these areas so that I have a bigger, better, greater awareness of who I am. A better idea of what God looks like through me. That's what I'm here for. Yay.
Yay.
Yay. Okay. Discussion.
Excellent. I'd start with kind of taking notes through some of it. Your example of something that didn't seem right as kind of life went on was men with long hair, because there is something that has been kind of a peeve. I don't know if that's really the right word for it, but that just doesn't seem right. I agree that when men don't take their hat off when they go in somewhere anymore, and it doesn't matter what kind of hat it is. It's not just a ball cap, but where I am, giant cowboy hats. I mean, they leave them on, and no matter where they are. And when we go to the sports games, we notice that men don't take their hats off to do the pledge or the national anthem. and some of them don't even want to stand or don't put their hand over their heart. And maybe some of that reveals our age, but it's been a sign of honoring in our culture. So you named all the different cultures and what's sacred and honoring, in that particular part of the world. And for us, when we hear the national anthem, you stand still and you acknowledge it and you take your hat off, and and you're honoring your country. And that's not a big thing for young people at all.
Right.
And
right.
so that's one of those things. So how do they even feel about the country? It kind of can bring up that question.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing going on through your conversation, and through your talk, we're talking about different levels of consciousness and what feels right to one person or not another. I'm reminded of the idea, or the truth, I guess it would be, that if we're creating our own reality with our thoughts and our own consciousness. And so what is right for one person really becomes their truth. So there's not one truth, really.
Right.
Each person lives by what they think their life is and the world is, and how people should be, and that becomes their truth. And then so the person next to them can have a whole different idea about that, and then that's their truth. So when we even talk about a world that works for everyone, that always kind of brings up that question in my head, because not everybody looks at things the same way.
Exactly.
And not everybody believes that when we look at it, levels of consciousness, lower levels of consciousness deal with lower energy. And it doesn't mean that there's, I'm going to say there's no judgment on that, because people who live that way just live differently. People who live at a higher consciousness and a higher energy level may be, someone who's in prayer all the time, or lives, or, someone like a practitioner or a minister in some way. And of course, not all ministers are high consciousness, but I mean, you're in that place of connection all the time, right?
Right.
So those two, opposites will have a totally understanding of what's right and wrong in each of their world.
Right.
And yet they can still live together
Right.
in a certain way, and where maybe meat eaters and non-meat eaters is kind of one of those weird examples. And I've started eating meat again. I just, bless it before I go. It's, life's easier because it's hard to be vegan all the time. But so, part of most of the reason I made that choice was because I believe that animals have a consciousness like we do, and that animals are important, and I didn't want to kill them when I could feed my body a different way. And yet there is a whole nother opposite that feels that animals are here strictly for us to feed on and to survive on and live on. And we can live side by side. We don't have to fight each other and all of that. And does one consciousness make the other one wrong? That's their truth. And that becomes the truth of their reality and what their reality is based on. And then this one here. So it's such an interesting conversation, because nobody's right and nobody's wrong, but God's in both places.
Absolutely.
The creator is in both places.
Right. And I think the key is to be as mindful about whatever it is you're doing as you can be.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, thank you, God, for this cow that I'm eating with a hamburger.
And I do absolutely believe that we are here to help raise each other up.
Yes.
And and the way you described it, I've described it, in similar ways when I've given talks about it, that we are serving ourselves and serving others. There are people who have, climbing this ladder of consciousness, and they're pulling us up, and we're moving up in consciousness, and then we're doing that for others if they choose to follow that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So.
interesting ideas.
Way interesting. I love the idea of being in an elevated level of consciousness. And that varies for me. You know,
Yes, for all of
that,
us. Yeah.
with that level. And of course, I'm a variety of things, including of which I'm very systematic in my thinking. And whenever I talk consciousness, I always go to David Hawkins' map of consciousness. And I always see, you know, the list of the elevated, these are my words, God qualities that will uplift yourself and those around you. And then the reverse of that, the tendencies that would not so much elevate, but that would bring people down. So when we talk about consciousness, I always tend to go to that map.
Mhm.
And I love, though, living and striving to live in an elevated level of consciousness, which to me is what I will describe as God qualities of love, joy, peace. And I was just having a conversation with a friend where, as you were saying, Reverend Suellen, you know, you look in our world, it just seems to be so full of strife, right?
Mhm.
And war and hurt and pain and suffering. And it's overwhelming, you know, it can be way overwhelming. And so my friend and I were talking about, um, and she reads a lot of this kind of teaching and has put herself through the Course of Miracles. And so we've talked about how, you know, really it's just, you know, to bring love to every situation, just to try to bring that forward in every interaction, be it be with an animal or a plant or a human, a friend or an enemy, an acquaintance, you know, a neighbor, just always bring that element of love and to try to, you know, bring goodness in every interaction. And that way, I don't think we didn't say it this as eloquently as you did, Reverend Suellen, but in that manner, then at least we would do little droplets of goodness and love and spread that instead of spreading anger, hate, and fear. And
Right.
that would help elevate all.
Yes.
So, you know, it's a beautiful way to live. It's a beautiful way to live. You know, it's the cultural traditions are interesting. And I do sometimes don't understand other cultural traditions, especially like, I'll use this as an example. I have a dear friend uh, here in Arkansas who is from Pakistan, and her parents come and spend extended time, you know, to help her take care of some of her children. She has special needs children. So it's a long story. And so I'm helping out in really small ways. Her parents don't have driver license. And so because I'm there, I witness the cultural exchange and dynamics, you know, especially between men and women. You know, and then I get on my high horse. It's like, well, why is the woman always having to serve the man, right? And especially if the woman is, in my mind, much more accomplished professionally than the man. And so then Diane gets all, you know, you know, and
The
then
nose bent out of shape. That's what.
I do. And then I judge. But you know, it's their culture in certain things, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard sometimes for me not to judge and go, how dare he be like that, you know?
Yes.
But anyway, yeah.
It is.
Even our own cultural traditions have waned. As you were saying, Reverend Lynn, you know, there seems to be a general a tendency to not honor symbols of our nation or even songs of our nation like we used to, which, you know, that's bothersome too. So anyway, I'm just acknowledging that sometimes I find myself in judging.
Yes.
But then I turn around with love. I try to anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, bringing forward an elevated level of consciousness in just the small little things of day-to-day life. I mean, even towards yourself.
Yeah.
It's just such a beautiful way to be. And I love that quote that you were saying about, I don't recall who it was, that the woman was striving to be such an example of living, you know, in God consciousness.
Cindy
That
Hollis.
who was this?
Reverend Cindy Hollis.
Got it. That you know, she was wanting those around her to then want to know who is her God. That's kind of beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's what's in us is what we see around us.
Right. Yes. And I think when we that the point of the topic, I think, was when we begin to be more elevated in our consciousness, then we encourage others to be uplifted in consciousness along with us. And they sometimes want to be uplifted, you know, I want what she's got, kind of thing, along with us as well. And as we begin to do that, we are expanding, up leveling consciousness throughout the world. And as we do that, then we end up with more and more peace and joy and abundance and less strife and less war and less terrorism throughout the world.
I totally agree. I mean, in corporate America, you know, the phrase lead by example.
Yes.
And there's a lot to that. What you bring to the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
the attitude, and what you bring to the meeting will set the demeanor of the meeting or of the
Yes.
exchange, or even, you know, what the executives, the CEO, all the C-level individuals, what they bring into a company, it sets that culture. There's so much truth to
Yes.
being
Right.
and how it influences others.
That's true. You're right.
Wait, what a beautiful conversation. I needed this.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So do we want to pray out? No, we want to do easy tithe first. So if you are watching this online and you would care to donate to Inner Journey Center for Spiritual Living, you may do so by going to the website, which is inner-journey.org. And there's a place for contributions on the website. Or you can text to 405 337 9739. 405 337-9739. And the word for tonight is grace. So now let's take a breath and recognize that there is still only God. And God is absolutely everywhere. That's in and through and has everything that exists. It's in the universe. It's in the stars. It's in the planets. It's everywhere. God is. God is all there is. And the power that is God, that created the universe, that created the stars, that created everything that exists, is in and through and as me in this moment. And I am one with that power, one with that God. And so I know as the power of God is flowing through me in this moment and every moment, and each of us here in this moment and every moment, I speak my word, knowing that for me, I have an expanded awareness of who I am, and my expansion of that awareness is growing all the time. I am becoming more and more aware of my oneness with all of creation, oneness with God, oneness with everything, every person, the mundane, the sacred, the profane, all of it. I am one with all of it. And as I begin to lift my consciousness even higher, that expands through me and to each person that I meet, to every person I come in contact with. And it is good and very good. And I know that I am a way shower, that I am a person who is essentially leading, showing the way to a group of people. I am leading. I am teaching. I am becoming. I am an example. And I am grateful. And so with gratitude in my heart for this becoming, for this knowing, for this being aware, I release this prayer into the law that only says yes to my word, and know that it is done here and now. And if you are in agreement, please affirm with me. And so it is.
And so it is.
Yes. Oh, perfect.
Turn the
Beautiful.
recording off.